Hello and welcome to the 7th video in the Project Sovereign series. In this video I'll refine the main deflector area, Shuttle Bay 2, the nacelle pylons, and the nacelles themselves. If you'd like to start at the beginning of this project, there's a link to the first video in the description below. This ought to be fun, so let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is the Shuttle Bay. I don't know if this is the main Shuttle Bay or Shuttle Bay 2. I'm just going to call it Shuttle Bay 2. But this part should not be that difficult. It's just making this curvature happen. Right now it's simply flat. So it's just going to be sculpting out these vertices right here just to make sure that the geometry conforms to this curved pattern. Then that'll be able to fit the Shuttle Bay doors, which will be a separate object. So here we go. Okay, so I made another buck for the Shuttle Bay doors just to see how this is going to fill out. I may need to adjust this. I'm going to have to look at more reference photos, but this might need to be tighter down into here. But as you can see, the polygons that I deleted in order to not have to continue the edge loops through the entire bottom of the secondary hull have been covered by the Shuttle Bay door, so I planned that out. Let me hide this so I can show you. So here you go. So I needed to add another loop here. And as a matter of fact, this appears to be a triangle, so I'll have to add another loop to turn that into a quad. But I think it's okay. You know, push come to shove, I could just have a edge loop going through here, but that'll be a really easy problem to solve. But down here, you can see I was able to delete these polygons right here. Let me get rid of this vertex. And that'll be fine. I also added another loop here. So let me get that in the shot here. I also added another loop here to tighten this up so it's not such a curve. You can see it's now nice and tight, just like on the model. And that actually made that come around here. And you can see it created a method for me to remove the pole from this edge. So now this ledge here is much sharper. You see that's pretty nice and crispy here. You know, some distortion here, but not too difficult to fix. It's just going to take some fine tuning. But this will eventually become the Shuttle Bay doors. You can see it's turbo smoothed. Whoops. So all I have to do is line up these edges with these grooves here, and I'll be able to cut those into the hull, make it look really nice and well defined. So this is pretty much done. You know, let's do some more tightening up, and I can move on to the next section. Boy, you know, sometimes it can be the littlest details that give you the most trouble when building these models. This has been pretty smooth sailing for the most part. Up until now, it had its challenges, but by far the hardest part of this model so far are these little tabs that are protruding on the engineering hull. This is a lot of tricky geometry because this part had to meet this part. Here, I can show you in the modifier stack here. Essentially, if you remember, it was just this part coming up all the way, but now this part had to protrude from here and meet up with this ledge here smoothly, and it was really difficult. I managed to get it okay. There's still a few sort of like pucker areas. I mean, they don't show up that badly in the render, but they're there. So I'd like to address that at some point, but I'm just going to call it a day on these for now. It's just really funny how the big stuff usually doesn't matter, but it's these little nooks and crannies that can give your modeling a difficult time. So it's looking okay for now. I'm especially happy with the way that the bottom one came out. I don't know what I can do to like sort of replicate it on the sides. It's probably just because due to the symmetry modifier, I only had to do half. But it's looking okay for now. So I'm going to move on with the rest of the model. Now, as far as the pylons go, I can't quite cut these vents. I'll show you these vents in the top and the bottom. There's these 3 vents, and I'm not quite at a point where I can cut those in yet because I would need to add more edge loops to compensate for the thickness. You can see there's like a thickness area right here. And if I were to do that at this point, it would crimp the curve of the pylons and it would make them so they were choppy as opposed to a nice graceful curve, which I want to keep. So the only thing I can really do at this point is to shore up these edge loops in the middle so they line up with the vents. That way it'll be easier to do it once I freeze the subdivision. So I'll be able to use all of these polygons. I mean, it's not perfect at the moment, but I can always just readjust, or push come to shove, I can just cut them out and do the extrusion there. But the edges of these are pretty sharp, so I don't really need the roundness of the Turbo Smooth in this area. So for now, you know, I'm just going to plan ahead, get the edge loops in place, and then further down the line, I can move on to cutting out the vents for these pylons. So now it's time to get to work on the nacelles. And really the only thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to cut in the Bussard collectors here. And I'm also going to cut in the notch here for the warp grills. So pretty basic stuff today, but it is going to get a large chunk of the nacelles finished. Everything else on it is basically smaller details that can presumably wait for when the geometry is frozen, or at the very least a second pass over the nacelles, but at least I'll be able to get the big features fleshed out for now. Okay, so that's going to do it for work this week. Just did a bit more refinement of the nacelles. I cut in the bussard collectors and the blue grill areas. Not quite sure what those are supposed to be for. But we're starting to hone the basic shape. Going to tweak it a little bit. Smooth out these edges somewhat. But it's starting to look like a starship. So next week's video, I'm going to start again on the saucer. Just start refining it a bit more. Going to really start refining this command tower structure area. Probably create these little spokes underneath. And maybe the RCS thrusters too, these guys right here. Though I'm not sure, that might wait until later on in the process after the subdivision's been frozen. But we'll just keep plugging along with this, and before you know it, we'll have a real working Sovereign class starship. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.